Uzbekistan, you can see where the blue arrow is pointing. It is in the middle of Central Asia, and Central Asia is under Russia and to the west of China and above Iran and India. So it's kind of in the middle of everything. And I'm going to take you through a little bit of Uzbek history first, because there are lots of interesting buildings and interesting people in Uzbekistan, and I want you to understand how they got there. So Uzbekistan, give me a thumbs up. Who's heard of the Silk Road? I hope you all have. Like, isn't it part of curriculum? Awesome. Okay, so that circle on the map of the Silk Road is where Uzbekistan is now. So Uzbekistan was in the middle of the Silk Road, which meant it was a trading center, it was a center for the exchange of knowledge as well, and the exchange of cultures. So here are some buildings in Uzbekistan that were built during the time when the Silk Road was one of the hugest economic and social phenomena in the world. You can see they look, I mean, I'm interested to hear, type what you think they look like, where you think you would find them, because a lot of people don't think about these when they think about Central Asia. They think about Star Wars, because who's seen Star Wars? Give me a hands up. Nice. Okay.
Awesome.
Can anyone guess on the right or on the left? On the bottom, which one is Star Wars and which one is Uzbekistan? Give me a hands up if you think the one on the right is Star Wars. And if you think the left is Star Wars. Okay, you're right, yeah. The one on the right is Star Wars, but it was based after the architecture you find in Uzbekistan, which is sometimes in the middle of the desert, which I found really interesting when I got there. And so, after the Silk Road stopped being very Silk Roady, the Soviet Union came into being. Can I get a hands up who studied the Soviet Union or Russia in your classes? Okay, great. In Uzbekistan, you don't usually think about it when you think of Russia, but actually it was part of the same country as Russia, which was the Soviet Union until 1991, so only 25 years ago. And the Soviet Union brought a lot of different cultural phenomena to Uzbekistan. It brought a lot of Russians, and it also brought this kind of architecture, which you can find in the capital city of Tashkent. So you see Lenin's face in the picture in the middle there, and you can see a lot of architecture that looks like you could find it in Moscow, actually.
Is the picture of Lenin still there, or
no? It's gone.
It looks quite modern though. It looks like a relatively modern picture, but
yeah, that might be from 2000, but I haven't seen that picture around the city. So can I get a hands up who thinks the picture on the left is Uzbekistan, and who thinks the picture on the right is Uzbekistan? Okay, you're right. You're good at guessing, I guess. The picture on the left, although it looks kind of the same as Uzbekistan, it's in Moscow, actually, because the same type of architecture stretches from Ukraine all the way to Tajikistan and Uzbekistan, where the Soviet Union used to exist. So this is what Tashkent, the capital city, looks like today. You can see mosques, you can see huge buildings, you can see buildings that look quite modern, and you can see bazaars, too. And so the main ethnic group in Uzbekistan is Uzbeks. Like, Stan actually just means land, so it literally means land of Uzbeks. And Uzbeks have been there for at least 1,000 years, maybe longer. And they speak a Turkic language, which is related to Turkish, obviously. And so their national costume looks like the girl on the left. You have traditional hats, traditional beautiful textiles, but people that you'll find walking around the capital city might look more like people on the right. And you also have Russians, so you have Russians in the national garb, but these are Russians who live in Uzbekistan and a lot of times speak the native language, Uzbek, although they keep their own culture as well. And you also have Kazakhs and, interestingly enough, Koreans. So you might be wondering why Koreans are in Uzbekistan. And they're third and fourth generation people, or Koreans, who came from North and South Korea during the time of the Soviet Union and became Russified. So they learned Russian, they learned Russian culture, and today most young Koreans don't speak Korean, they speak Russian, which is really interesting.
Really interesting.
It blew my mind.
Do they still identify as Korean, or okay?
Yeah, because the Soviet Union really emphasized nationality, so it emphasized, who you are, your culture, etc., your language, too. So that's why they have celebrations, like you can see in the photo on the right, on the bottom, where they dress up in their national dress. And even if they don't speak Korean, they still make Korean food. You can find kimchi, which is the Korean salad, all over Uzbekistan.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they have a really multicultural society in a way that we might not think of.
No, not at all.
And so the only official language of Uzbekistan is Uzbek or Uzbekcha, and it's written in both Latin letters and Cyrillic, like the language or the alphabet that's used in Russia. And you can see below there's a banner for a concert written in Uzbek. So I would love to hear you pronounce that, but unfortunately I can't. But you can try the phrase on this page, which says "Man Uzbekcha gapiraman," which means I speak Uzbek. If that's too hard for you, you can say salam, which is hi in Uzbek, or you can say rahmat, which is thank you. And a lot of people still speak Russian, especially people of the older generation. And so Uzbek food is probably also my favorite thing about Uzbekistan. You have plov, which is, in Uzbek it's osh, and it's like pilaf, like Eastern European dish. So it's rice and carrots and onions and sometimes, meat cooked and fried kind of in a huge cauldron called a kozan.
Yum.
And on the right is a somsa, which are like meat pies, basically. This is a fried meat pie. And then you have sandwich.
I like that.
Which is also just a sandwich, but there are some restaurants that make sandwiches in kind of Uzbek style. So I think this one, it has a kebab in the middle.
Wow.
And they're delicious. And then you also have izum, or grapes. And grapes, fruit, everything grows in Uzbekistan. So in the summer, you always have like fruit to snack on, and you can pull fruit off the trees. Have halva, which is like, if any of you have tasted halva from like Arab countries or from Israel, a lot of cultures have it, and it's basically just like ground up sesame seeds or ground up seeds or carrots sometimes that you mash into shapes like you see on the right or on the left, and it's delicious. And then you have naan, which is bread. So if any of you know of Indian naan, it's the same word, and it's actually a Persian word, which goes back to the Silk Road when everyone was trading with each other. And most people spoke Persian at that time, actually. So there are lots of Farsi and like Persian and Arabic words in the Uzbek language, and Russian words, of course. And so you have people make different shapes of bread, and people like to get really creative with their food, which is why all of this is in such beautiful presentation. And then also, when you think of Uzbekistan, you might not think of a metro that looks like a cathedral, but it does. It was built in the 1970s, and it's one of the fastest metros in the world. I mean, for me, it's really fast because I live in Raleigh, where there's no metro. And then you have on the right, this is called Damas, which is made by was made by a Korean company named Daewoo. And about 8 people can fit in it, and people use them like buses, but they'll go around on the bus route, and you can tell the driver like where to get off, like whenever. And you can also like pick the taxi up whenever you want. So they're really convenient, and they're really cheap. They're also Spark, like I think GM has a plant in Tashkent.
Wow.
Yeah. Uzbekistan is a hopping center.
Yeah, so it's very like cosmopolitan, fast growing, and sort of industrial. Yeah. Which you may not think of, and you may not think of New Zealand as that either, but both of our countries aren't just, pretty scenery or anything like that. There's a lot more to them.
And lots of people live